with us today Mr. Caroll Verghese Chiramel, a very distinguished alumnus of Children's Academy. He has proven his mettle in the field of editing and post-production, and his organization called the Orange Dot Productions is a name to reckon with in this field. A very warm welcome to you. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So you are a perfect amalgamation of creativity, adventure, spirituality. How did you manage to don so many hats?
In fact, thank you for inviting me on this and in this podcast. And coming to school is a nostalgia, by the way. Seeing all this development that happened in the school so far. Now, coming back to your question in terms of editing, travel, and spirituality. Let me start with the editing process. I was always inclined to art, inclined to creativity from my school days. Um, it's just that I realized it later point of time that okay, this is the field I need to go into, where I found that there's happiness for me. There is some satisfaction that in the field than getting into something where I was not comfortable, or I would say I couldn't bear to an extent that that I'm happy now. So, and being in art, and the art form is in various. I used to dance during my young days. I learned Bharatanatyam as well for 3-4 years, and of course I was into fine arts as well. So filmmaking came into my mind because when somebody used to tell me a story, you know, the things that come into my mind is more than the words. They turn into images. To be frank, and the images turn into frames. It's not just one image. Like as you say, okay, somebody's going to one place to the other place. My imagination would be literally the person is walking to the space, and then okay, there is some conversation happening. So how that frame works. So that led me to take up. Okay, I would be good in editing because that's also storytelling,
Yes, absolutely.
right? Without that, just films won't be made.
If I could ask you here, you mentioned that you paint pictures in your mind.
Yes.
So you graduated from this school in the year 1989.
Yes.
So what are the visual imageries that you carry in your mind?
But the teachers were very supportive. They knew to an extent, especially Mukundan sir, he knew that I'm quite caliber person, in a way. I don't know, he must have seen something. So he was supporting quite a lot. So school, because during grade 7 and all, the school was not the way the building was. It was one floor, can't say row classes, I would say that, and we had an open ground. Now it's pretty much you have gated, but that time we had an open ground. We used to just run away from during the recess times, and of course sharing tiffins. I don't know these days we kids do that or not, but our days we used to do that. Probably we used to even steal somebody else's tiffin as well. And there are a couple of good friends that still we are, knowing that what we used to do during our school days. And grade 10 and all, of course, Mukundan sir was our class teacher. Indra teacher was there, and she also supported me, knew that where I was lacking in my studies and how can I cope up with that. I remember my grade 10 class as well, which is in first floor. So it's quite exciting to think about it. Of course, sports was one thing which I used to love. I played a lot, especially volleyball, javelin. Oh, javelin throw, I'll tell you one thing what happened. And that friend is still mine. Once I threw a javelin, and the friend of mine, he was walking by, and the javelin hit on his neck. It was, and he's till now also he talks about that. Hey, Caroll, you threw that javelin and hit on my neck. And then, do you remember that? I was like, yeah. Good thing that nothing happened. But yeah, we played, we did shot put, whatever the sports we could do. That I still remember that. It was so fun.
So you mentioned about your failure also.
Yeah.
I believe that acted as a stepping stone to success for you. In fact, you mentioned your grade 7 sort of debacle during those times.
Yes, I would say failure is actually, I always think failure is the best teacher for us. And without failure, there is no success.
Correct.
And to accept failure, to understand that, and to acknowledge that, I think because success can be at to a certain limit, then there's always a downfall. But the failure always pushes you to, it breaks you in a way that you realize, okay, this is my potential. Let me do that. Let me focus. Like it can help you to categorize your potentiality rather than just sulking into that failure. I failed. I did it, because that negativity happens a lot. And I feel like people should fail. Like even uh, uh, Michael Jordan, he says, like, after so many attempts of putting those 3 pointers that he used to put, after so many attempts he got that one. He realized, okay, this is what he can do. Same thing with, I think, Thomas Edison. I think Thomas Edison was Albert Einstein. He said, like, he did around 999 trials. In 1,000th time he got the right one, and he succeeded there. So I think the failure is a part of parcel of life. We acknowledge that, and I think probably the best friend you can have it.
I'm so glad that you mentioned it, because at this juncture, when the students are just 15 and 16, success means everything to them. So you mentioned failure and how failure is extremely important in creating the persona that they will have in their later life, and how they will create that bond and the strength and resilience as well. So glad that you brought this up. Because this is an important, we need to be resilient in these particular times. When you mentioned and you discussed the school life, I could understand that you have a very strong connect, a strong bond with the school. So do you recall, would you like to share some such memories with us?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'll tell you, because I was not so studious person, uh, I had a good time with all my friends, some of the teachers as well. I was into dances especially, and the first time, because I never got a chance to be a part of the annual day. And annual day is like, it's a big thing for every student.
Yes.
The one who's participating and the one who's going to watch it.
Yes.
It's like, it's okay. That's a big. And we used to be, I think, I hope Ramlila Maidan is still there, I guess so.
Yes.
So we used to have our function there.
Okay.
And
Now
big-
we have it in big in a
Now,
hall.
yeah,
Yes,
but that
auditorium.
was that big function, the space we Children's Academy used to book it. So my first experience of being a part of the annual day as a performer was in grade 7, and being a Bharatanatyam, studied Bharatanatyam. So our teacher who actually performed they arranged that play was the play of Parshuram.
Okay.
And that, like, I was the Parashuraman, and there's a friend of mine. I think he was a son, and another friend, she was the Parashuraman's wife. So I got to know there's a Parashuraman story, which is actually based in South of India, where he has his anger and all those things. So that was my first performance. Then in grade 8, there was a complete play on Ramayana.
Okay.
And the funny part is, the Ram was a woman, and who played the character, and I was playing the Ravan. So that was also like, it's like this negative role, and it's some, and quite a different attire with thick mustache and all those things. And some of my friends, they were my this those soldiers and all. So and the one who played Parashuraman's wife, she was the Sita in during the Ramayana, and till now my friends call me. Some of the friends call me Ravan.
Okay.
That kind of image I impact. I said, like, good. You somehow the other way you put an impression. Like, probably that is the kind of impression.
So
I put in.
yeah. Carol, while you were speaking, I understood that you have this great passion for editing, filmmaking, especially in the field of creativity. So that particular time, why that particular time? Even in the present times, it's difficult to deviate from engineering or the set path of medicine. How did you muster the courage to do something and follow your own calling?
Yeah, it was difficult. I would say at that point of time, and now also, like, a lot of pressure kids are taking in terms of what career to choose, because these top careers they know that there's a lot of potential into that, in terms of career, in terms of money making, in terms of the credentials that one get being a doctor, engineer, and everything. But yeah, the creativity is something that comes, within when one starts to explore. And I had an incline of doing. I was into fine arts during my school days. Though I was studying, everything was there, but fine arts somehow always attracted me, either whether it's drawing or painting or something, those things. And even somebody telling story, understanding, listening to that, and my mind used to go to imagination. Okay, whatever is saying, okay, these are so. That means I had the power of imagination, creating my own world, and that I think not many people get it. It's like there's a thing called left brain and right brain. I think the left brain thinks of imagination, right brain is more of rational thinking. Very straightforward. So I'm a left brain. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think so. It's left brain that we talk about. It's more of creativity, more imaginations, and so that was my calling. And then of course I did my graduation and everything, but still never got a chance to go to fine art school. One thing that I was not aware of it, unfortunately, that there is fine art school that I could go. So, during the school days, I would have prepared myself. Okay, others are preparing for engineering, but there is fine arts. Because fine arts also, not only in the filmmaking, people go into advertising, people go into, art form, there's sculpture, there's all those paintings, which is now, when people buy paintings, from a great artist, they are sold $1 million. So that's the kind of power it has. So everything came out pretty late when I realized, okay, when somebody tells me a story, I could imagine the frames when somebody's explaining a story. So I picked it up. One thing, it was technical, and it's also creativity, and everything it's itself is like a storytelling, in filmmaking, which is so that's the reason I picked it up. Though there was a pressure of, okay, you should do engineering, you should get into that. But and that drew me because I felt like that's my calling. I need to pursue. And filmmaking is creativity, right?
Yes.
You make your own world.
Absolutely, you create your own world. You mentioned that you underwent, you had to face a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So at that juncture, what kind of support did Children's Academy provide to you?
To an extent, of course, the teachers knew that I'm not academically so great. So they wanted to make, okay, somewhere you get success. They never knew that I could be where I am. But they had that feeling, okay, this boy should get success in his life, in a way, so should not get, demotivated or something like that, which generally students happen because of peer pressure is there, the parental pressure is there, or the society pressure today, I would say that okay, if you fail, you have a problem. Or you get categorized, okay, he's a non-studious person or things like that, which is not. Every individual has their own strength, and how one can, either you self-analyze and you get the strength, okay, this is what I want to do, or somebody else supports, that. So school, in a way, made sure that, okay, I at least get the basic requirement of, one is completing my education from here and pursuing what I want to do, because even I never knew that at that point of time where I would go. And like some of the students, okay, I want to be doctor, because probably their parents are doctors, so they know, okay, once is the one thing they're doctor, second thing they can run the same clinic. So everything is set up.
Yes.
But for us was not the same thing. So that pressure was there, but I had to make my choice where I fit myself, to succeed in my life. One thing, to be satisfied. What I'm doing, I'm very happy with that. And film industry is $1 billion business in a way, if you look at it. Of course, not everybody makes it to the big bracket, but same thing goes the other field as well. Not everybody becomes an IIT and becomes a CEO of Google or anything like that. But there is an aspiration to that, and if one has a determination, then why not? That was my only motivation.
Yes. So I could understand that the school provided that necessary support, moral support to you, provided that ability for you to take risks in future.
Exactly.
And you also made us understand that there is a place for everyone in this field as well. You mentioned that everyone cannot be heading the Google, but everyone can aspire and achieve certain levels in this particular field. And you defined success beautifully. and made it aspirational at the same time, very clearly told us that we need to define what happiness means to all of us, what success means to each one of us.
Exactly. I think that's quite important. To one thing, it keeps us grounded. One, you're having failures and then you find success, because that's what most of the top leaders who had come from a very humble background, when they talk about, when they reach that level, they talk about the same thing, that pick that, have the failures as your best friend, and the success as as a kind of reflecting yourself. Okay, where are you heading? Rather than taking that as a success as your other friend, which could be good, which can be bad as well, because you can get to the next, into something different zone, which not many people would like it. But failure is the best place to keep you humble. And as you said, that every field has its own there is nobody can stop that to achieve what you want. It's up to us, up to the individual to break into that path and making sure that okay, they get into and not to quit. It's easy to quit and come back. Okay, no, I could not do it. Unless there is the very different situation that they want to come back. And okay, it's not that part. But of course, unless until you don't try, unless until you don't jump into the water, how do you know how you can do this? You can swim or not?
Yes, yes. So I can understand that honing skills is extremely important in this particular field, and for that matter in any field. And you also mentioned that when you were a 15-year-old, you didn't know much about this field. So later on, did you undergo any professional training? Were you undergo any kind of academic rigor, or was it on-the-job training for you? And how did you begin this journey of post-production and editing?
So, one thing was, since I was inclined to creativity, I said and at that point of time, filmmaking didn't come into my mind, but I knew that advertising was pretty big. When it comes to, because I think that's where filmmaking was okay. Filmmaking was, I would say it was not even in radar, because it's always it's bigger than anything. Yes. That's why we call it a silver screen, because we say Amitabh Bachchan is he's a giant, he's a superstar. So to think about okay, I can be part of the industry. No, I cannot think. Advertising, because okay, that's a corporate level. We are dealing. So that's where I can go. So, but unfortunately, not being a part of the the fine arts industry, I said okay, let me get into the advertising industry and see where I can be part of the creative field. So I got into advertising and I was into client servicing, which to an extent I didn't like it, because it's still the sales, and meal. But I wanted to be part of, coming up with ideas, how that ideas can be executed, and what all things needs to become that idea to a successful story. Because we talked about those ideas, those thumbs up ads, those big brands ads, those life boil ads, which sometimes some bad advertising are still remembered, some good advertising are still remembered.
Yes.
So that was the thing. But then after 3-4 years, I realized, this is still not, I'm not satisfied. I'm not in the creative field. I'm still handling with people around, but I'm not kind of participating into that. And then I realized filmmaking could be one thing. But there also it was, okay, I could make ads, but never thought of getting into feature films.
Yeah.
So I started finding out where I can learn. And that point of time, FTI was one thing. But then FTI, you need to be, there are certain tests you need to go through that, test and all, learning physics, chemistry, and certain subjects into that. So I said again a test, I might not pass. You self-doubt
have your own
yourself.
inhibitions. Yes.
So I said okay, which is the other institute? And then I went to Xavier's Institute of Communications. They have a 1-year diploma course. I said okay, that's a good place. 1-year diploma, I can learn and I can get into start working, because I didn't at the time 3-4 years of studying. And so I went to XIC. And XIC, I met a couple of people around there with my who studied with me, and that was a very good exposure for understanding what is filmmaking all about. To understand what is directing, what is script writing, what is radio jingles, how radio jingles are made, how radio stories, because we remember there was in the afternoon during this what is called Hawa Mel. If you remember, there was Hawa Mel that used to be there, where people used to tell stories.
Yes.
And that stories, if you just close your eyes, those stories used to turn into imagination. So we learned the power of storytelling, through radio, through filmmaking in terms of that. And that point of time, okay, you either you take into direction or you do camera work or into editing. So I realized, okay, editing is one place which technically it makes me stronger because technically it helps me, and of course creativity. You become part of the whole idea of filmmaking where you're telling a story, from the editing table, and that's where I realized, okay, this is what I do, and I started working with, did at least 6 months of free work in a post studio, understanding the technical part, and then working with some of the best editors, assisting them. Those were the path I took, without maybe less pay or any no pay kind of thing. But the whole point was to learn.
Yes.
Learn with the masters,
Yes.
understand the craft, because that craft is so important. Which probably had the school had a little bit of it would have helped. But you have to learn, and that one thing is learning from these institutes is one thing, but being in practical and understanding with those masters, it makes a lot of difference, and that needs time.
Yes. So what stood out from what you spoke right now is that learning never stops. You have to keep learning and honing your skills. And you mentioned that you had a lot of, learning in an institution is one thing, and on-the-job training is completely different. Caroll, this podcast will be watched by students of Children's Academy and other youngsters as well. So what kind of skill sets are required to enter into this field, and how can the children develop these skills?
It's a very, very valid question where you have asked me, because I wish somebody had asked me that 20 years ago, 25 years ago. In fact, in this one thing is that how do you love films? One is it's entertaining, but the other thing is, do you love storytelling? That's what the first thing I would ask. Yes, there is fame, there is money, but keep those things aside. But do you love? Like anybody has to think, do I love watching films? Do I get inspired? Do I love the acting? Do I love the camera work? Do I love how? Do you feel that there is a magic in that? If there is a curiosity for yourself to get into that field, then explore that. Then. You asked a valid question about how to get into this field.
Yes.
This is very, 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 very interesting field because one has to understand that whether they love storytelling, whether they love films, whether they get inspired by some of the actors, some of the directors' work, and does that film, when they watch a film, does they get emotionally attached to that? After watching them, when they go back home, do they think about it? Those things actually make them realize this is something, a crazy field, where there is a world that you watch it, you enjoy, especially in cinema, you enjoy it with 300 people watching one time together, and that's a completely different emotions by itself. People cry, people laugh, people dance the joy, and like especially Indian cinema, you have RRR singing, you have 30 people going and dancing on the floor.
Yes.
So if that inspires you, then why not? So in that case, you try to watch more films, understand the language of cinema, understand the language of television, which inspires you to tell the story. Then you figure it out. Okay, what can I tell a story? How can I tell a story? How can I be part of this? Because there are multiple departments in the filmmaking.
Yes.
Whether it is directors, screenwriters, scriptwriter, cinematographers, editors, sound person.
Yes.
Production assistant, the production managers, line producers. So there are various parts of, to focus on that, and to master that itself it takes a long time. And to acquire that, one is, okay, you have an institute called FTII or Satyajit Ray Film Institute, that's in Kolkata, and then you have in Chennai as well, the Prasad Institute, I guess. So there are a couple of, now you have this Whistling Wood, a couple of other institutes are there, private institutes are there. So you can explore, you can see what you can feel, where you can feel, fit yourself into understanding that, because that's complete, one is technical thing and one is creativity as well. And all are intertwined. There's nothing like separate. Even tomorrow, I'm being an editor, my aspiration is to become a director. The reason I picked up the editor, because when I started my career, my seniors told me, if you want to become a director, master the work of editing. So that's why, like, filmmakers like Rishikesh Mukherjee or a couple of other, even Bimal Roy and Manoj Kumar, they all started editing, before becoming a director. Besides, of course, they are actor and everything, but they learn the art of editing because that's the second place where you still constructing the story, after you get the material of that, besides the writing part. So that's how it took me another 20 years of editing working, but understanding how the story is telling, how the camera working, how the lighting is working. So all that matters. Even in camera work, there is department like gaffer. There's people here. There's light departments. How they work on that, because gaffer is so important in terms of understanding the lighting, the setting of the lighting for the director of photography to create that mood, which the director who envisioned. Okay, I want this scene to be like that.
Yes.
So there's a lot of steps to go about it, and a lot of people put their ideas, put their thoughts into making what you see ultimately in 3 hours.
Yes. So what I could, fathom is there's a lot of critical thinking, there's transfer skills, a lot of research that goes into your kind of work. Your people must be ready to collaborate, and that intense passion has to be there for to succeed in this particular field. If I could take you back to the year 1989. That was one particular year which witnessed a lot of magnificent things. We were at the cusp of liberalization. Sachin Tendulkar made his debut. We all watched MPK, Mani Pyar Kiya. And Agni was launched that particular time. So that particular, we became, as a society, we became very aspirational. So how did Children's Academy ensure that you are in the right place, that you can face the changes that were happening in the world order or around you?
Because the teachers were so, of course the teachers were strict in what, making sure that the students are, in the right space and space in a way what they're doing. But also they were pushing us, as I said, Indra teacher pushed me to an extent to do what I should do. Mukundas was always there, though you look at him like he's there, but internally, he's just one of the softest person I could ever imagine. And he definitely, his few words always inspired us to challenge ourselves, to go about it and see. So those were that helped us a lot in a way. And then of course when we went outside of the world, from that comfort of the school to the understanding the real world, we got to know that schools invariably, or I would say this psychologically or subconsciously, I would say that has helped a lot in a way that today I think many of the friends of mine who from the same batch are doing very well, whether it's business or whether it's a profession, and that has helped a lot. We talk about it. We talk about how much schools are influenced,
Yes.
in a way, and being me, I was quite active in sports. Sports helped me to understand how a teamwork helps in every field. There is nothing individual, especially in filmmaking. There is no individual. Even though director is the captain of the ship, but he or she also relies on the rest of the team. How? Because if any of the team members slacks, it affects the whole film.
Absolutely.
And one could see in the 3-hour film what happened. Because they know somebody did not do, and the director has to make sure that the team is working because he relies on the rest of the team. So that sports helps a lot to understand how the team works. Teamwork is so important. And the collaboration, as you said, like I have to collaborate with directors, I have to collaborate with the producers, understand what they're thinking, what they expect from me, in terms of the work-wise, in terms of the creative-wise, because I have to share my thoughts, how the film is working, how the edit is working, and everything. So that is so important, especially in today's world. The collaboration is the key for any success.
Yes, thank you for that. Now again, moving back to 1989, I'm stuck there at 1989. Mumbai during those times witnessed difficult times as well. So again, how did the school ensure that you imbibe the spirit of accepting differences, plurality, diversity, and helped you become more resilient?
Very valid question considering the current time what we are facing, because when we came to school, we were just kids. My immediate neighbor, the student, the friend who was sitting, either he would be a Hindu or a Muslim, it didn't matter. For us, it was with friends. That 8 hours or 9 hours that we spend, it's like, heaven for us. Though everything was there, we used to fight, we used to have, but that's why when we talk about, especially when we get back to our school friends, uh, anything political happens, we always say, यार स्कूल के टाइम में तो हमने कभी बात ही नहीं की थी, कौन मुसलमान है, कौन हिंदू है, कौन क्रिश्चियन है, हम तो बैठ के एक दूसरे के टिफिन खा रहे थे. That was the kind of thing, whether it doesn't matter who's bringing what. So, and the fight used to happen, we used to play, everything was there. So the question of religion never came. The question of different race never came. The question of, in fact, they were waiting, some of my friends were waiting, okay, Christmas ka bhi aa raha hai, when we can have the wine cake, because that's the time when you get to know that we are growing up, so how we can taste wine. It's a wine cake, mummy se ghar pe wine cake kabhi milega, plum cake kabhi milega. That used to kind of topic used to have. I used to wait for Diwali, sweets kabhi mil raha hai. Like, call me, I'm coming home. Still now I talk to my friends like the same thing. Like that's so I think school imbibed us in those aspects, and the teachers made sure that I think we never thought about it, to be frank. These things never came across. So, and teachers they knew that the kids are least bothered about all these aspects. Even the parents also pretty much, they were open to understanding. Okay, they consider us when we go to their houses. They can say, "मेरे बच्चे के friends, they got our own kids. उनको खाना दो, उनको पीना दो, सब कुछ करो. Don't let them go without having the food that we are preparing." That was the kind of relationship we had with our friends, and that of course they came from the school. If the school had that division, it would reflect in the house as well. But school never created that. So thankfully, I always say that we grew up in a different era. We grew up, so our education was different than what some of the schools are, or some of the kids are learning today. From the outside, from wherever we are able to.
I must assure you, it is still continuing. Every day is like a festival in school.
Fantastic.
So you must visit us more often for that.
Yeah,
Yes. So is this your exposure to films and different cultures that drove you into spirituality?
I would say yes, because as I said, one is like thinking of religion. Religion becomes very specific. Spirituality is inward, and that I learned to an extent, to getting to know a little bit of Buddhism.
Okay.
How they explore, how they inwardly making us to realize, where we are going wrong, where can we go right, how we can improvise, and that is what we look into others as well. Not just ourselves, but you look into others. Like if others are going wrong, where you can help them to go right. Not making them to tell them, okay, you are wrong. No, how you can make yourself better. And that is what I'm looking at. I mean, even every aspect of religion, whether it comes to Hinduism, Buddhism, or anything, I'd like to explore that. And every culture has something new to give, something to learn. Still, I think people haven't explored half the world's culture. Even you go to a tribal area, they have a different set of a culture.
Yes.
And today's Discovery Channel has bringing those aspects. You get to learn. But once you go there, that's why I tell my wife and my kids, like, if you go to any other country, we should not live in the city. We should go interior, live in that small area, explore that. You get to know how the people are talking, what they're speaking, how they exchange their communication, what they feel. They might find us something like an alien because we are brown people. We're getting that. But they also find something new. They love to talk to us rather than the city. We know what the city is going through. But when it comes to village, you get to see what kind of food. There's a completely different kind of setup. You enjoy that. You explore that. The weather itself is different. So that itself is spirituality, and spirituality comes in every field. Even my filmmaking as well. I find that passion. I find the spirituality when I see a film. When I do an edit, something happens. That's why I got this. This is something good. There's a kind of satisfaction to that. And that's where I find spirituality to an extent. Feel this is where I belong to.
Okay. You mentioned that you like to explore. I can understand that you are a nomad at heart by any chance. You
Of
love
course.
to explore.
I always tell I would have been a nomad. If had I not been a family, had wife and kids, probably I would have been gone somewhere in somewhere and exploring things and just live a simple life. Still making films, being part of that. But yes, I'm a nomad.
So you're grounded and you are a nomad. It's a combination.
I'm a complete
Yes. Okay. So now we have another round for you, a very interesting round. It's called the Gatling round.
Okay.
The rapid fire question
Nice.
round. So, who sat next to you in grade 10?
Grade 10,
Rapid fire.
yes. Grade 10, there's a guy called Vivek. Uh, I forgot his. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years back. But yeah, we used to call him Jadia because there was one fatso guy sitting next to me. And there was one, yeah, he was there. One was Sham Sundar Kethi.
The favorite place in school?
The backside, the volleyball ground. Which is, I don't know if
It
there.
still is
That was
a
my
favorite sport of all students. And the subject that you love the most?
Very, very tricky question. Because always I would say that it was the drawing class. Was my really good subject. Even whatever I learned from there.
Okay, good. Your nickname, if any?
My school friends, after my act in Ramayana as Ravan, some of them start calling me as Ravan. With love, they still call me, and I call them like, hi Ravan, how are you?
Okay, then any teacher who has left an indelible mark in your life?
There are a couple of them. As I said, Mukundan sir and Indra teacher they were pretty much, quite supportive. Hegde sir, they were 2-3 people were there. I don't know a lot. Aru teacher, she made sure that I passed in Marathi. Because I was weak in Marathi. Like languages were one of my most difficult, especially Hindi, Marathi, because for me that even the E matra was just confusing. So, but she made me sure that I pass the Marathi exams.
Sir, you passed this test wonderfully well. I must congratulate you. I don't have a hamper. I'll give it to you later on. Caroll, you transported us into a completely different world. There was imagination, creativity. There's a lot of nostalgia. As I mentioned earlier as well, this podcast will be watched by students, our students, as well as other youngsters. So what is that message or advice that you have for Gen Z?
Oh my goodness, that's, I also seek advice. The first thing is like, explore yourself. Whichever age you are, there's always something new to learn. Explore yourself and make sure that you understand your strength, and as well as weakness. Those are two things. Don't take pressure, because pressure can boggle you down. But enjoy the moment. Result will be anything, and there is always a room for improvement, and learning will never stop. You can learn at the age of 80, because I've been living in Canada for 10 years, and I know that there are people there still at the age of 75. They work 80. They work. They still learn something. They want to explore something or something. Whether they're traveling or anything, and if possible, if you have a chance to travel as much as you can, because there's nothing in this world that can teach you besides traveling.
I'm sure they are hugely inspired by you. And we are very thankful for the time that you spent with us, for your valuable time. We know how busy you are. At the same time, we know that you have that musical inkling for music, and you love to sing. So could we have you hum a song for us, something which transports us to the world of nostalgia?
Put me into spot now. Yeah, music has been my one thing, because me and my other friend, who's also my school friend, Chandra, we used to sing in our building on the terrace. During the exams, take a break, we used to sit on the terrace and we used to sing a lot. Let me just think about it. Probably one of the old numbers, I guess so. मुसाफिर हूँ यारो, ना घर है ना ठिकाना, मुझे चलते जाना है, बस चलते जाना. मुसाफिर हूँ यारो, ना घर है ना ठिकाना, मुझे चलते जाना है, बस चलते जाना, दिन में हाथ थाम कर इधर बिठा लिया, रात ने इशारे से उधर बुला लिया, सुबह से शाम से मेरा दोस्ताना, मुसाफिर हूँ यारो, न घर है न ठिकाना, मुझे चलते जाना है, बस चलते जाना.
Thank you so much for that wonderful song. It actually defines you.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
yes, and life is a journey. It's a never-ending journey. On that musical note, we come to the end of this wonderful podcast. I'm sure our children, our students, and all others who are watching this podcast would be hugely inspired and motivated, and be ready to pursue their passion and and understand what their true calling is. Thank you so much, Mr. Caroll, for your valuable time.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy, and I find lucky that I came to the school and gave you my podcast. You know, it's such a wonderful experience.
Thank you so
very
much.